What up, fellas?
So how much did you know about David Blau? Fill us in on the last couple of years of David Blau.
Well, first of all, you knew from the time they hired him, because they said this early on, just that he was very, very sharp and smart. And, like, the more you talk to people around the league, like, that's his reputation. So you knew that. And to go from basically practice squad player to coach and brought here with Kingsbury because he had coached him in Arizona for a brief time, you knew that part. And then you knew that he had a lot of competitiveness in it because he and Jaden Daniels compete every Friday. They play their little version of horse or pig or whatever you want to call it before practice, and it gets, I wouldn't say like intense, but they both compete pretty hard, and he will talk trash to Jaden, but they have a very strong relationship. So those are probably the few things that jump out, right? Because it's hard to know a whole lot more because for the most part he was an assistant quarterbacks coach, so he wasn't on the fast track he thought he was. You knew. Let me say this. You knew that he was going to be on a faster track than others. It just sped up a lot more over the last couple of weeks.
How similar do you think his offensive philosophy is going to be as to Kingsbury, since he played under him and he coached under him?
Well, he also played under Ben Johnson and Kevin O'Connell and people like that. So I was talking to somebody who knows him, who has worked with him in the past, and said that in his conversations with him, he thought it would be more like the Ben Johnson, Kevin O'Connell scheme.
Okay.
But like, this is a guess. It's a guess. I mean, I think that was an educated thought because it's somebody who has talked to him in the past. That wasn't like a conversation this week, but it was in the past. So, I don't know, but I don't think it's going to be I would doubt it would be a Kingsbury part 2 in terms of how it looks. But I think it sounds like want to incorporate elements from the Ben Johnson O'Connell tree.
John, did you hear any details, any intel from any of the other candidates they interviewed? Like, was it close, or did Blau win this in a landslide? What did you glean from some of the other interviews that you heard about?
Oh, this was like, his was the name. And it was, do you wait for Mike McDaniel? Mm-hmm. That was the other. Those were the two. So I don't know what other names, but like Brian Dable, never heard his name in connection to this. Guys like that. So, but it became clear after a while. It's like it's Blau or do you wait for McDaniel? And then it was clear that McDaniel's getting head coaching interviews. He might get another head coaching position. Detroit was very interested in Blau, of course. So if you roll the dice and wait for McDaniel, then you miss out on the other guy that you want to keep in your building. So that's what I heard mostly throughout most of last week.
All right, let's talk about the D coordinator position. We know they've interviewed Denard Wilson. Who else was mentioned? Jason?
Joe Cullen, Patrick Graham.
Yeah. So I assume there'll be a bunch of different guys. From what you're hearing,
what you'd want is at least a similar philosophy and belief in the system. Partly because, if you're Quinn, you believe in that system. So you're going to want someone like that. And the other thing is, if you're a defensive coordinator who runs something completely different, do you want to work under a coach who may or may not agree with all of that? You know what I mean? So it could end up to be like with Kingsbury. I mean, they had a different vision for what they wanted, and it went, this way after 2 years. But the things that you hear are like, wanting an experienced play caller, and all those guys have been defensive coordinators at some point. Cullen, I think, was for 1 year. And then there's obviously Raheem Morris and then Jeff Ulbrich, who is currently employed by Atlanta and may or may not be free. I think that'll depend on who they hire as the head coach there. So I think, I think you'd want to have somebody who at least, again, has similar philosophies and belief. Whether or not you do everything the same way, that's not, I don't know that you need to do that, but I do think you'd want some familiarity. And I, obviously in this business, there are a lot of times coaches hire people that they are familiar with. And if that's the case, then Raheem and Jeff Ulbrich would have a pretty big edge. And those are the names that you hear initially, but that's something to check on even more this week after the round of interviews, because sometimes somebody comes in that, just like, this is the guy you want to work with. So I think with that one, I think you got to wait and see like what happens with Raheem, and then what happens in Atlanta, because I think those would be the two, Ulbrich and Morris, those would be the two that you would think would be the, I don't know about favorites, but certainly the names to watch. And then depending on what happens with them, then you start to pivot.
JK, getting back to Kingsbury, when did that bumpy road between Kingsbury and Adam Peters actually start?
Adam Peters? Yeah.
I got a good source on this one.
Yeah, I have a few too.
Okay.
This is not, that is not what the bumpy road was that led to this.
Okay.
So, this is.
I was told that Peters didn't like, or Kingsbury didn't like the constant feedback on what they were doing offensively.
Well, but that's not coming from one person.
Okay.
So this is like.
Did they leave on bad terms? Like, was it one of those deals where it's like,
there's a reason he's not there.
There is,
yeah.
and Dan Quinn wanted a certain philosophy, and did not mess with Kingsbury's.
Mm-hmm.
So
did it get personal though by the end?
I guess it would depend who you talk to and what the agendas are.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that. So, but with this one, it was the thing that I heard from numerous people was there was a difference in philosophy and how they saw the offense now and then in the future. And that was as much with Quinn. Now, does Quinn alone make these decisions? I don't think anything over there is one person making a decision.
Mm-hmm.
It's and even it's funny because at the last press conference, Adam Peters said, that it was Quinn's decision, and Quinn referred to it as collaborative. But you're not making this decision on your own. And Quinn and Peters talk a lot. Now, would Adam let his opinion known? Sure, I'm sure he does. But so did Quinn. So, that's what was a major beef or anything like that. I think it was difference in philosophy. And one wanted to run the system the way he wanted to. One wanted to run the ball more. And they did that late in the year, but it was more out of necessity than by desire. And I think that was more Quinn's desire to go that way.
Which is interesting because, you kind of know a guy's philosophy when you hire him. You talk about it.
You do. And listen, like I can talk or I can point to the ending and say this is why it went this way. That's the harder part to fully grasp. And I don't know that I have a good answer for that because I have the same question.
Right.
And I know, you go back to Peters, he was the one that had the connection to Kingsbury that led them down this road to hiring him. But the only thing I can think of, and someone else pointed this, so this is not like, I don't know if this is a reason or not, but it's a theory that Kingsbury had not been a coordinator in the NFL, so he'd always been a head coach. And when you're the head coach, you're going to do it the way you want, right? Mm-hmm. And when you're a coordinator, there's going to be more collaboration with the head coach and with the staff. And
maybe he didn't like that. Yeah.
Well, I don't know whether or not he liked it. Maybe it was just like it didn't work. Because I don't like. Kingsbury has he's a good guy. Like they're all good guys. I don't know that there's like this major, throwdowns because of it. I just think there's a difference. And
something changed, though, when losing and everything.
Sure. Well,
that's what losing does.
Because they were raving about each other.
They loved each other. Yeah. They loved each other last year.
I remember him talking about DQ specifically.
Right, and someone else had told me that they wondered if some of this was there last year, but winning covered it up. As far as direction, the desire to go a certain way or to be a certain way, and when you're winning, of course it's working. And so you're right. When you're losing, then you start to see more of what you want in the direction you want to go. But I can't answer fully that question because I don't know. Because you're right. This is who he has been, and I think he did bend what he normally does here. I think, wasn't fully what he had done in the past. I think there was an influence here for that. And they did run the ball a lot. Now, a lot of it was, they were fifth in runs, but it was 19th with running back runs. Mm-hmm. So, you know what I mean, in terms of carry. So, but he did do more. And I think, so it's hard. It's still sometimes, you can, it's funny. I was talking to someone last week, there just always feels like there's that gray area with this, to fully get it, because it hasn't been fully explained to me. But like I said, the ending, I don't think it's as simple as saying, oh, the GM had this vendetta against him.
John, we know that Adam Peters has a lot of tough calls to make this offseason. The easiest call I think he has to make is releasing Marshawn Lattimore, saving the Commanders nearly $19 million in salary cap space. And I understand why he made the move, because they were kind of in a go-for-it mode. But this is one that clearly blew up in Peters' face.
Yes, it is. And, there's been other good moves. Tunsil thing, the Tunsil trade was good. But that one did not work. And I think, at the time they did it, I think there was an acceleration of the program because they were winning at the time, right? And I think they looked out at the corners and St. Juice out there, and you wanted to get something better that you felt could compete to get in the playoffs, right? So that was partly why, that was a big reason why they did it. I don't think you make that move if you're kind of 500 or whatever, right? But they were playing pretty well. I think that's where it went, but it did not work out. I mean, he, was hurt for most of last year when he got here, and then obviously very up and down. So, that one did not work.
No.
All right, John, good stuff. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
All right, thank you, John. Appreciate it.
See you, buddy.
That's John Keim from ESPN giving us the latest on the Commanders' offensive coordinator, which is now filled. David Blau is the new OC, but they're still looking for a defensive coordinator, so we will monitor that. Coming up next, the Bears come back with 25 points in the fourth quarter to beat the Packers, and Ben Johnson quite fiery in the locker room.
Oh, yeah.
Eric Bickle not a fan of it. We'll get into that next. The Junkies.